Books make great gifts for everyone on your list. Your mom the globetrotter, your coworker that runs marathons, your upstairs neighbor who plays electric guitar until 2 a.m. in the morning. Hey book readers, if you're buying a book for a friend or family member, they each deserve one that matches their hobbies or personalities. That's why I put together this gift guide of 13 books for any kind of person. For the adventure seeker, I suggest River of Darkness by Buddy Levy. The subtitle of this book gives you an idea of what you're in for with this work of non-fiction. It's Francisco Orellana's legendary voyage of death and discovery down the Amazon. Sorry kayakers, but this makes your peaceful afternoon spent paddling look like a walk in the park. Now the book jacket is what sold me on how cool it would be to read about this remarkable adventure, especially this particular paragraph. In 1541, the brutal conquistador Gonzalo Pizarro and his well-born Lieutenant Francisco Orellana set off from Quito in search of La Canella, South America's rumored land of cinnamon, and the fabled El Dorado, the Golden Man. Driving an enormous retinue of mercenaries, enslaved natives, horses, hunting dogs, and other animals across the Andes, they watched their proud expedition begin to disintegrate even before they descended into the nightmarish jungle, following the course of a powerful river. Soon, hopelessly lost in the swampy labyrinth, their numbers diminishing daily through disease, starvation, and Indian attacks, Pizarro and Orellana made a fateful decision to separate. While Pizarro eventually returned home barefoot and in rags, Orellana and 57 men and a few fragile craft continued downriver into the unknown reaches of the mighty Amazon, serenaded by native war drums and the eerie cries of exotic predators. Theirs would be the greater glory. There's a bit of an Indiana Jones vibe throughout this entire book as Orellana overcomes insurmountable odds to become the first European ever to navigate and explore the entire length of the world's largest river. Adventure awaits! For the musician, I suggest The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto by Mitch Albom. The fictional Frankie Presto is the best guitarist who ever lived who plays a guitar with magical abilities. Presto is a wonderful, flawed character who Albom weaves into music history, making him seem incredibly real by the end of the book. Seriously, you might forget for a second that Frankie Presto never actually existed. That's partially because Albom includes a few well-known music legends in his story, giving it a solid foundation in reality. I've always enjoyed Mitch Albom's writing style and was surprised that this book is nearly 500 pages. Albom doesn't usually write books that long, but trust me, it flies by. This spoke to me on a personal level as well because I played the trumpet all through middle school and high school and now mess around on the mandolin every now and then. If you play or used to play an instrument, let me know down in the comments. This might be the perfect book for you. If you're buying a book for a gamer, be sure to buy them Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Like most people in 2044, Wade Watt's life isn't so great. So almost everyone escapes the real world to spend time in the Oasis, a virtual reality space where you can be your true self. Now, the creator of this VR world has promised riches, power, and fame to the person who can solve his riddles. There's a reason this YA sci-fi book has been one of the most popular of the past 10 years. You get to go on a fun journey through a world that Cline really brings to life. And even though this has pop culture references galore from decades past, I think it still appeals to young readers today. So it's the perfect gift for gamers no matter their age, for those still rocking the N64 like I do, or those who are live streaming on Twitch. For the nature lover, gift them the book of A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. This travel book explores the author's journey along the Appalachian Trail, a historic walking path that stretches for over 2,000 miles from Georgia to Maine. Now, I read this book before beginning my own Appalachian Trail hiking trip back in college. It really did make me excited to go out in nature and make memories along the trail. In this book, Bryson shares personal experiences, history of the area, and so much more. It's an inspiring novel that makes you want to experience the AT for yourself. Sure, you may come underprepared for days of solid rain and develop some green stuff growing between your toes like I did as I walked nearly 250 miles on the Appalachian Trail. But all of that is what makes everyone's Appalachian Trail experience and tale unique. If you have a pet person in your life, get them 15 Dogs by Andre Alexis. The gods Hermes and Apollo make a bet. Apollo believes that if any animal was as intelligent as a human, they'd die unhappy. So they make 15 dogs at a vet clinic smart, forever answering the question, I wonder what my dog is thinking. Being written mostly from a dog's point of view, there's a lot to smell and cock your head at, but it's much more than that. The book touches on deeper topics like individuality versus being part of a group, growth versus stagnation, and if ignorance really is bliss. And it's not just for dog people. Dog people will probably love it, but I think crazy cat ladies could come around to a more pooch-friendly point of view if they read this book too. For the health nut, I'm recommending Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. If you know someone who enjoys running 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, marathons, here's the book they didn't know that they needed. It's mostly about the sport of ultra running, where racers run over 50 or 100 miles sometimes. And in the book, the author is trying to track down a group in Mexico called the Tarahumara, who are rumored to run for hours and days on end in an unforgiving terrain with only simple sandals on their feet. Along with that part of the story, the book also dips into human history and the evolutionary advantages we gained from our bodies being able to run for long periods of time. It may not be the perfect book about running, but it's sure to inspire anyone who gets it to lace up their sneakers and at least jog around the block a time or two. For the history buff, there's How We Got to Now by Steven Johnson. Want to learn something new or get a fresh perspective on an everyday thing? Want to achieve your dream of making connections like a cop at a corkboard following a conspiracy theory with lines of red string? Read this book. It's an explanation of the history of innovation over centuries, digging into the secrets behind some everyday objects of modern life. If you know someone who would be fascinated by how glass, cold, sound, hygiene, time, or light influence the past and impact the present, get them this book. The mix of physical items and abstract ideas included are explained in an easy to understand way, so even a dummy like me can grasp these complex concepts that are being presented. It's riveting to read how scientific discoveries and cultural norms are linked in a spider web, where objects and ideas that have seemingly nothing to do with one another somehow are more closely related than you think. For the homebody, there's The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Homebodies will find their spirit animal in this book's main character, Linus Baker. He's a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth, checking on magically inclined children at orphanages. Linus is a bureaucrat who wants to do his job well, mind his own business, go home, and repeat again and again and again. But then he's sent to Marsyas Island Orphanage, a special place where only the strangest and most troubled children go. It's where he finds his toughest assignment ever, determining the danger that this particular orphanage poses because of its inhabitants, which are a gnome, a sprite, a wyvern, an unidentifiable green blob, a were-Pomeranian, and yes, the Antichrist. At its heart, it's a story about family, belonging, being different, and being accepted for who you are. And yes, even if that's someone who wants to curl up under the covers and lay low at home, Mr. or Mrs. Homebody. For the puzzler, you gotta get them Piranesi by Susanna Clark. You know how you can instantly tell a book is going to be a puzzle? When the first line of it is, "When the moon rose in the third northern hall, I went to the ninth vestibule to witness the joining of the three tides." Yeah, this book mixes fantasy, mystery, and science fiction as the pieces of the story begin to settle into place. Like a puzzle without a box for guidance, you're immediately thrust into this disorienting experience of being inside Piranesi's head. Your task is to try and make sense of the nonsensical world that Piranesi inhabits. However, most of the mind-boggling details about our protagonist and the setting are eventually revealed and better understood in the end, which is ultimately satisfying. So if given enough time, this book will hook you as you scramble to figure out exactly what's going on. For the science geek, get them Tough Voyaging by George R.R. Martin. This is a collection of several short stories featuring the protagonist Haviland Tuft, a perceptive, eccentric, tells it like it is character. Physically, he's extremely tall, overweight, bald, and has pale skin. He sometimes proudly wears a green dad-style baseball hat with a spaceship's logo, but may also go undercover by sporting a red wig and beard, fooling no one because he also is just humongous and is so recognizable. Tuff is a not-so-savvy interstellar merchant until he comes into possession of the Ark, a gigantic spacecraft loaded with one-of-a-kind future tech that everyone else in the universe covets to own. Now, what makes this perfect for the scientists in your life is that each short story presents Tuff with a different ecological challenge. He uses his unrivaled ship to solve the problems of planets and people through ecological engineering, meaning he grows plants and creatures to fix what seems unfixable. Science! For the sports fanatic, get them 12 Mighty Orphans by Jim Dent. I talked about this one in a previous video, and if you're a diehard sports fan like me or a born and bred Texan, this is the perfect book, especially if you love watching or playing football. And this nonfiction read is about the Mighty Mites High School football team from Fort Worth, Texas, during the 1930s and 40s. It's the ultimate sports underdog story featuring an undersized group of Depression-era orphans who band together to form one of the most formidable football teams in Texas history. The team comes up against football giants who they have no business beating, but maybe somehow they'll find a way to do so. You simply just can't help but root for them, for the individual characters, for the team, for the community that they're a part of. It's just a great inspirational story. For the traveler, I'm recommending The Star's My Destination by Alfred Bester. This sci-fi classic is set in a future where people can teleport by simply thinking about where they want to go. Quite the convenient way to travel, right? The main character, Gully Foyle, is a working-class guy who could have seemingly been saved from a disaster in space by the ship Vorga, but he was left for dead instead. After miraculously surviving, he vows to know why he was abandoned in space and then punish those responsible for not rescuing him. It's definitely inspired by the Count of Monte Cristo. I mean, Gully transforms himself from a lowborn with little knowledge and skills into a man who looks and speaks like an upper-class gentleman, all in the name of revenge. An incredibly similar thread to Edmond Dantes. And it's the perfect book for someone who wants to go places. And even though it was written almost 70 years ago, it still feels like it could have been written yesterday. And finally, for the tech enthusiast, get them Influx by Daniel Suarez. Why deck the halls when you can tech the halls? In this tech-tastic thriller, a revolutionary scientific breakthrough is swept under the rug by a shadowy branch of the government tasked with slowing down technological progress by not sharing it with the public. The inventor of this game-changing innovation is then imprisoned with other doomed rebel brainiacs, and he has to try and escape to bring down the shadowy government organization. But to do so, he'll have to outsmart his captors, who are armed with gadgets, tech, beyond his wildest imagination. There you have it, 13 gift-tastic books to give every kind of person in your life. Remember to like and subscribe. Happy holidays and happy reading.